Now we will be talking about XQuery assertions. Fine. As far as XPath concerned, in one time we have seen that you can give only one XPath. Right. Now, if you add you add a new assertion and go click on property content and we get XQuery. Now, what is XQuery? We have seen what an XPath is. XPath is something which represents the address of the element in the document. Fine. XQuery is well, you can say it's like an like SQL statements are there, right? Select star from table and all, and those SQL statements they get the values from the table and all. Similarly, XQuery language is there. This XQuery language gets the values out of an XML. Okay, so just like SQL commands are there for database like select star from table and all, similarly there are query languages. XQuery is for this XML files. Fine. Now if you click on this, you will get a window like this, similar to the window which you get in XPath. Fine. You click on declare and declare the namespace. Okay. Now, but XQuery is different than XPath. Right. In XQuery, the major advantage in XQuery is that you can have multiple results associated with the input. For example, in XPath, we used to give one XPath and we used to get one output at that XPath. For example, I want to print the names of all players, right? So using XPath, you will have to use a different XPath for all the players if you're using XPath assertion. But in XQuery, stuff is little different. Fine, hold on. If you go to this URL is for XQuery. If you open up the browser and if you go to this URL, look, again XQuery is a world in itself. Fine, but we don't use it that much with SoapUI. Okay, we don't use XQuery that much with SoapUI. Neither we use XPath assertion that much. Okay, I'll tell you what you actually use, but since it is a part of SoapUI, I am telling you. Look, these are all the chapters on XQuery. It's a big thing. Fine, you can have a look at it if you are wanting to use it in your project. You can have a look at it. Okay, but this is a book basically, nothing. But this is a book. I have a hard copy of this book with me as well. And it's a good book on XQuery. It's like it's got a lot of things in it, various chapters and all everything. Okay, but in SoapUI, there are other ways which are better than XQuery. But still, I will talk about XQuery here. Fine. In XQuery, you start everything with tags. For example, I'll make a tag named as result, and I'll close the tag. In the result tag, I'll suppose make a tag called name, and I'll close the name. And what I'll do is I'll write a XQuery here, which will print the name of the first player from result. Okay, that is this is the XPath for printing name. Okay, so in XQuery you actually give the XPaths as well. You'll write curly braces. Okay, you write curly braces here and then type data. Give round brackets. Data is a function in XQuery which will be recognized automatically, and in the data function you pass over the XPath, right? And click on select from result. This will give you the name. Okay. If sometimes what happens, name is not printed, you have to write in the end /text brackets, this one. Sometimes you have to write this if the name is not coming. So this is giving you the name at this particular XPath. Okay, so this thing over here, if you test it, this will pass, right? So this can be used to find the name at the third location, the third name which is coming in the response. okay, and test it with the this becomes my expected value. Next time if I run this thing and I get a big response with me, right, this thing will pass, because at the third location the same name would be present and the result of this would match the result of this. This is the actual value which is coming. This expression is evaluated in the end, and this is the actual expression with which the value is confirmed. Now what if the location of this name is changing? That is, the response is not same every time you send the request. I send the request now. When the response comes up, the names of the players, they are not at the same location. They move one location up or down, something like that. Okay. In that case, this particular XPath match query or this XQuery will fail, because at third location assertion will not be finding this name. Okay, so in that case we can use something else. We will compare all the names, right? So I'll make another X query over here. This is how X query is different than XPath. In X query I can bring on all the details of the players as well. Fine. Now this is a little bit tricky. You have to write it the X query way. You'll have to write it like this: result curly braces start end slash result, and then you write a for loop. Okay, that is, you write for now before I write this, hold on, this tag over here in response T player names. Okay, this is repeating itself again and again, and what my basic motive is, to get the values of all the name of all the players, right? Name of all the players is coming under this tag, right? So what I'll do is that in my SOAP UI, in all details, right, I'll write a for loop for $x. This is variable. This is a variable x. Like you write a for loop, right? You write for int I equals to 0. In XQuery, you have a variable like this. You start the variable with $sign $x in, right? And I will give this particular tag empty player names, because this tag is repeating itself again and again. In this tab, again and again the player details are coming, right? So I'll give this tag over here $x in M:(T player names. That means we will keep on iterating from one tag to another, and every time $x will hold the value of the tag. And you write over here a return tag name, close the tag name, and in the curly braces write data we had written earlier, right? Like the way we wrote earlier, sorry, in the other one, in the previous X query, we wrote like this, right? In curly braces data, round bracket, okay, inside it the XPath would be $x slash the name, that is M:(S name, M:(S name. Now what is X? When this loop runs for the first time, okay, X will point towards the first tag, right? And then I'm writing get the data from the tag $x, that means the first tag, inside the first tag S name. When the loop runs for the second time, the second tag, third tag. So similarly like this, if you select this, hold on, I'm getting an error. Actually, I don't need to put this slash in the end. Most of the people do this mistake. Remove the slash and click on select from current. So this gives me all the names. This gives me all the names, first name being Adam, then Adil, Adrian, Aiden, Alan, like this. Right? Now I can save this assertion and I can execute the request once, right? The response will come back and this assertion will pass. This is fine, but this does not serve our purpose. This serves our purpose that all the names they get verified at the particular location. Suppose if I make Adil at the first location and if I save this and I run the request and I'll get the response, assertion will be validated and it will fail, right? Because Adil is not the first one. Now similarly, suppose in the response the whole thing it gets jumbled up, right? In the response which comes up, whole thing it gets jumbled up. That means a response would be this will be evaluated at runtime. Response would come from this. This is the expected result. The first name will not be Adam and everything will go for a toss, right? So how do I work with it then? Fine. How do I work with it then? Now, if you know SQL queries, then in SQL you write sometimes select star from table order by. What does order by command does? It orders the result in a specific particular way. Fine. Similarly, you can order the result also out here. You can order the result. You can write over here for x $x at, say I write $I in this. Right. What happens is that $I will become our counter. Fine. And I'll write over here order by $I. Okay. And I will write over here name the value of $I in XQuery. If you run this, you'll see that I starts from 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just give some space. No, let it be like this, right? If you run this, you will see that the value of I starts from 1 and it is going to 368. So basically, you can order the contents. Fine. Now instead of ordering it by the value of I, right, I'll just copy this code and I will keep it over here so that you can use it later on. I'm going to modify this code. Instead of ordering it with I, I'm going to remove I again from here. I'm going to remove I. I was just telling you, you can have a counter like this. I will order it with the help of MID. That means the ID of the player. Order it by the ID of the player, and you can write over here for $X in player names, and I will order by $X slash M:(IIT). So I'll order the contents by the ID. Okay, and if I run this, the contents they are now ordered by the IDs, their IDs. And even if the response, right, even if the response changes, if the ID number 16 it goes down, and if 21 comes up, or if 22 goes down, or 47 comes up, right, it doesn't really matter, because in XQuery assertion I am extracting all the records and I am ordering them by a particular, by their IDs. Hold on, ID, D should be small, D should be small, right? Yeah. Now you see that Martin comes first and some other player is coming. Earlier we were having some players like Adam coming first, and also every time, no matter what is the location of the player, every time they will come like this. Okay, by the result of evaluation of this would be equal to this, and you can test it, it will pass fine, and you can keep the expected data like this. And basically what happens is, with XQuery and XPath, we first generate our expected data like this, and then we save this complete thing, and the expected data remains here, right? Okay, fine. So I'll copy this code as well, and I will place it in the notes so that you can have a look at it. And I'm going to modify this code again. Now suppose I only want the players of a particular country. From this response, the complete response, I just want the players from, say, Poland, right? With the help of XQuery, I only want the players from Poland. Now in SQL you must have heard about the where clause. Select star from table where ID is this. So we can use the same where clause over here as well in XQuery. That is, before order by, I can write where $x slash, now what tag is country name, m colon country name. This is the tag, right? Okay, so you write over here where $x slash this tag, the value of this tag is equal to, say, Poland. Fine, when you run this, you'll only get the players from Poland. We're printing the player name. Suppose along with the player name I want to also print his ID. So you can use the same thing over here, and you can write M I ID. And if you want to print the country as well, ID, name, and data $x slash MS country name. You can also print the country name like this. Now if you run this, see, it will order the players by their IDs, fine, and it will also print the country names in the end. This ordering would always remain same, fine. So I can save this data as my expected data, right, and I can test it again and again. So this thing will test my ID, name, as well as country name. This kind of assertion will test everything in the response. It will order everything and it will simply test it. So XQuery is very powerful. Even if the location of this player changes in the response, fine. What I mean to say is, hold on. Okay, there are two scenarios. This is my response. This is the response which I get when I send the request. In this response, I will modify the name of Adam. Okay, he is the Poland player and I have modified his name. And I will go to my XQuery, the last one and this one, and I will now test it. I have extracted all in my expected results. I have all the Poland player names, their IDs and all everything. And what I have done is I have changed the name of Adam in the response here. If I test this, immediately I get an error that the assertion has failed. And if you look at the assertion failure message out here, if you drag, you will see that it is telling you something that Poland order by this return name has failed. Hold on. Yeah, see that Adam and all is written out here. Okay, so this thing has failed, right? You can double click on the network recording clear, it will maximize. If the font is small, you'll be able to see it very clearly. Fine. Now again, if you look at the error logs and all, you'll also get something over here. Hold on, so PI logs, yeah, you are in error logs you will get, and hold on, What I mean, the basic motive out here is to make you understand that fine, if the name changes, okay, if the name changes, I have a problem, right? But if the name is fine, I don't have a problem. And moreover, if I change the location of this record, I bring this below added, fine. Now, if I go and run this assertion will pass. In the response I'm getting this. If I test it, it's passing. Response matches the content, right? So this is what I have done. This order by, this is the beauty of order by command. Now you must be saying that this thing is something which is similar to SQL commands, right? And XQuery, like talking about XQuery, it is a world in itself. Fine. I can keep on talking it for hours and hours, and even I also, frankly speaking, I also have enough idea about it, but not that good. Okay, because in SOAP UI you don't use practically. I don't use this kind of XQuery and all. It is there for you because I am teaching you the tool. I am supposed to teach you the XQuery and all, every aspect of the tool. Maybe in the interview you can be asked about it, but I think this much knowledge would be good enough, right? But still, if you talk practically, then in practically, if somebody asks me to keep an assertion, I always keep a script assertion. Script assertion is done with the help of Groovy scripting. So I'll talk about that on script assertion. I'll be having a separate module. So in this module, I'll be talking about other kinds of assertions, right? Compliance, status, and standard. I'll talk about this in some time, right? First, talk about the SLA assertion. Fine. Now, it's very simple. If you send a request to the server and the response is coming back, in this type of assertion, you can specify the time in which the response should come. Right. For example, I add a response assertion and I say, fine, response should come in 2000 seconds. Fine. And this is the assertion which is added. Response SLA. Right. Suppose if I make it to 100, it fails. It fails because the response actually came in 935 milliseconds, basically, not seconds, 935 milliseconds, and you actually kept a limit of 100. It's up to you. In this assertion, what's the maximum time which you want to keep to make this assertion pass, right? So this is about SLA. It's quite simple, not a big deal, but now this kind of assertion you can put. This kind of assertion is very helpful. If you want to check the response timing and all, better put the SLA assertion. This is very handy. But using XPaths and all in property content expression, it is really a pain in the neck. So it's better to use script assertions for that, which I'll talk later on. JMS as well, I'll be talking about later on. It's basically Java messaging server. So it's completely different world, right? Just hold on. Okay. And security. Security assertion is again something which is very handy. Now sometimes in your response you don't want some critical data to come in, and so you can add security assertion. You can click on this and out here you can add tokens. Say I add a token called that is description is, suppose you can give some description. Now I am telling SOAP UI out here that in response a person named Adil should not be present. Okay, that in the response a person named Adil should not be present, and when you click on OK and you run this last assertion will fail, that Adil was found, right? So similarly you can keep all the tokens in the response which you don't want them to be present. For example, a password or some say account number or any critical data which you don't want it should be present in the response. Maybe it should be encoded, fine. Maybe the data should be encoded and you need to decode it, whatever is the thing, but it should not be present in the response. And suppose I can give a tag name as well. I can give that I say S name should not be present. right? So this will also fail, right? So if you send the request, you get the response, and you will see the error coming, right? Now, okay, so this was about assertion, security assertions, SLAs, property content, fine. Now talking about compliance status and standards, right? This is well, HTTP code invalid status. It is important. This is quite important sometimes. Now everybody knows that HTTP protocol, it works actually on the top of sorry, SOAP protocol actually works on the top of HTTP, right? When you send a SOAP request, it goes as a HTTP request, and the response comes as a HTTP response. In HTTP, we have got various response codes, and the one which we always love to see is 200 OK. This is the response code in HTTP protocol. When the request goes, if you get a response code from the server 200 OK, then that is the best thing, right? If you want to see a list of all the HTTP response codes and all, you can go to Google and just type in Google HTTP response codes. Fine. You go here and have a look at this in Wikipedia. You'll get the list of various HTTP status codes. Fine. And there are various 200 OK, 201 created, accepted, something like that. So there are various HTTP codes. 4xx codes are quite bad. There are error codes and all, bad request, unauthorized. 404 not found, that means the application was not found on the server or something like that. So basically in this kind of assertion over here, in invalid HTTP status codes, you can mention the codes which you don't want, which will be invalid basically. For example, 404, 500, 300. You don't want these codes. So this assertion will pass if the codes are not present, and this assertion will fail if the code is present. Right now it is passing, but as soon as I give a 200 code over here, it will fail because 200 code was found. So all the codes which you don't want, you can give it over here. Again, this is handy. This is as handy as SLA assertion or sensitive information assertion is, right? But as far as parsing the values of the response is concerned, best is script assertion. Fine, I'll talk about script assertion sometimes, right? So all these SLA, security exception, and invalid HTTP codes, so these all are good assertions. You can use them, but if your project is good, it becomes difficult to use expert assertions or something. Right? Now, not SOAP fault. That means that the response which comes back is not a SOAP, is not faulty. Okay, so this assertion gets added automatically. You remember once when we create an assertion, when we create a test request, for example, I create a new test request and dummy type of request, and I select any operation, this thing comes up, right? Right, so this is not a SOAP fault assertion. So all these default assertions, they come up, these are actually from here. These are from here, that is not SOAP fault. Okay, so you can just put it, there is no input data in it, nothing like that. You can just put it that the error message should not be any faulty error message or something. Fine. Similarly, you have other thing as well, like hold on. Schema compliance, whether the response was as per the schema. SOAP fault, which is opposite of not SOAP fault. Fine. So generally we use not SOAP fault if you are using it. Fine. Where SOAP response, this validates whether the response is actually a valid SOAP protocol response or not. Basically, it is as per the SOAP rules and regulations, right? Schema compliance, I'll again repeat, is it tells you whether the response is as per the SOAP schema which is given to us. Where is the schema? Schema is actually out here. Whenever you have command, right, XML and scope. So this is actually the schema. Schema means in XML the URL telling the rules and regulations of the XML. This URL over here tells the rules and regulations of the SOAP XML. So that kind of assertion will check whether the XML is as per the rules and regulations mentioned in this schema or not. Fine. So you really don't have to worry about this. Okay. Don't go into this. Fine. If you have to add the schema assertion, just go over here, add a schema assertion or a SOAP assertion and all. Fine. Valid HTTP status code. This is opposite of invalid HTTP status code. So you can put this list of valid HTTP status codes which you want. For example, I want 200. 200 is valid. So this will pass. Fine. Valid is opposite of invalid HTTP status codes. Then, right, WS addressing response and WS security status. These two I will discuss in the later modules probably because these are related to headers. Fine. I'll discuss these assertions later on. Fine. So mostly I have covered all the types of assertions except script assertions. The most important assertion is the script assertion. This is the most important assertion. Rest all of them like property content are also there. All of them are handy. Fine. These ones are generic assertions which validate the SOAP document, the schema and all everything. Fine. HTTP codes and all. Right. So now, okay. Now going back to the notes, I will save the notes. Hold on. Before I do something. Right. Okay. Now it is written over here. Best way to use assertions. Fine. Well, best way is dependent on the project. If I have a very small project having one or two requests or operations, I'll use these kind of assertions. It doesn't really matter. But if I have a big project, fine, then I'll have to use a lot of Groovy scripting and assertions. And there comes the script assertion. Okay, the best way is that you can use SLA, you can use security assertion and all these invalid HTTP codes. But as far as parsing the XML response is concerned, what do you mean by parsing the XML response? I mean the content of this XML. As far as the reading the content of this XML is concerned, the best thing is going for Groovy scripting. You will see why. It's very handy. It is very easy, right? And practicality for using inbuilt assertion features. I just talked about this topic in the complete flow itself. Practicality of using XPath assertions and all is quite less. Fine. XQuery, I can agree, it is quite practical. If you know it, if you actually work on XQuery a lot, if you have worked on it, then it is very, very practical. Okay. Otherwise, you'll have to give a lot of time experimenting it, a lot of time exploring it. Fine. So better you use Groovy scripting when they have given